So this is going to be our house, huh? The rest of the stuff is coming today too, so please take care of it. What? What are you doing on your own? Oh. By the way, Angela is coming too, so please welcome her. I had expected frequent visits since moving into the high-rise apartment. But I never thought it would go this far. As soon as I got home from work, I asked my husband. Your mother is saying they're going to live here. Oh.
Yeah.
That was today, right? What are you talking about? Huh? Didn't I tell you? We're going to live together starting today. Stunned by his laughing response, I was at a loss for words. Don't just stand there stunned, start preparing the food. We're celebrating today. That comment made me snap. There's no way this is allowed. In the first place, it is because of me that you can live here. What? What are you talking about? It's just a coincidence, right? As I argued with my husband, my mother-in-law showed up. If you don't like that much, you should just leave. Then, she threw an envelope on the table. What is this? It's severance money from us. Severance money? There's $10,000 in that envelope, so divorce him and leave. We'll take this house. The in-laws were grinning at me. At that moment, I made up my mind. I thought, these people are really stupid. Lucky me. Understood. I'll be out of here right away. I quickly packed my things and left the house, skipping along. But this wouldn't be the end. The high-rise apartment belonged to my father. Imagining what would happen to them next, I couldn't help but burst out laughing. My name is Vanessa, and I work as a bank clerk. I had thought I could have a happy life married to Kevin. But marriage doesn't always go as planned. The first time I felt this was when I met my mother-in-law. So you're Vanessa. What do you do for work? I'm a bank clerk. Oh, a bank clerk. So you can become one even without being very smart. Excuse me? That was clearly a dig at me. It happened when we visited to greet them before our marriage. Kevin, sitting next to me, smoked a cigarette as if it didn't concern him. Well, looking forward to being a family with you. Yes. I'm also looking forward to it. I wondered if this was okay, but after getting married, my husband was kind and we didn't have much interaction with his mother. Was it really good to marry a man with such a low salary? What's wrong all of a sudden? Well, my mother said something before, and I felt a bit embarrassed. You don't have to feel like that. It sure is fine, really. Kevin had always lacked confidence from when we were dating. The first time we met, he was intimidated just knowing I was a bank clerk. But I never really cared about his financial strength. Since then, I think we had been leading a modest yet enjoyable life. A few months after we got married, my father called. Where are you planning to live? I think the place we're at now is fine. Actually, there's a vacancy in the high-rise apartment. What do you think? Huh? A high-rise apartment. Indeed, my father owned a luxury high-rise apartment. Originally, he was a president. But he had handed the company over to my brother and was living a comfortable life. Of course, my husband knew that too. If you guys are okay with it, you can move in right away. Okay. Let me talk it over with Kevin. I discussed it with my husband. Kevin, are you interested in living in a high-rise apartment? A high-rise apartment? It would be great to live in a place like that. Seeing his smile, which I had never seen before, made me feel happy too. Actually, my dad asked if we wanted to live in the high-rise apartment. Really? Yes. Excited, my husband suddenly grabbed my shoulder. Calm down a bit. Oh, sorry. Thus, it was decided that we would live in the high-rise apartment. However, it was also the beginning of hell for me. Then, I'll tell him about it. Thanks. But, living in a high-rise, huh? His eyes sparkled with excitement. With my husband's consent, I called my father the next day. Hello, Dad? I've got Kevin's consent, so we'll take you up on that offer to live there. That's great. The apartment is already clean and ready to move into any time. Understood. Thank you. Then, I'll take care of the paperwork. At this point, I realized something important and asked him. By the way, what about the rent? Don't worry about that. As long as you continue to live in the high-rise, it's free. Really? Is that okay? Of course. It's for my dear daughter. My husband and I immediately began preparing to move. We finished the preparations in just 1 week and moved in soon after. Perhaps we were both overjoyed about living in the high-rise. So this is the high-rise, huh? Amazing. I never dreamed we could live in a place like this. It feels like a dream. This is all thanks to your dad. Yes, we really should be grateful. Though the high-rise was larger than our previous home. And it was bewildering at first, we quickly got used to it. There were many times I wondered if someone like me deserved to live there. But I soon found such thoughts silly. About 2 months after we started living in the high-rise, my sister says she's coming to visit us. Is that okay? Kevin had a sister, Angela, who was 3 years his senior. From what he had told me before, she had been married but got bored and divorced. She had moved back into her parents' home. Well, that's fine. But why now? I had only exchanged a few words with her before and didn't understand the reason. Actually, when I told her about this place, she said she wanted to come. I see. It's fine if it's on the weekend. Then, I'll let her know that. And so, the promised Saturday arrived. The doorbell rang, and when I opened the door, there stood a woman dressed in brand-name clothes from head to toe. I hesitated, but she spoke first. Long time no see. Do you remember me? Of course, Angela. Can I come in? Yes, please come in. As Angela entered the house, she seemed to be inspecting every corner. She checked each room and seemed satisfied with something as she nodded. Is there something you're curious about? I was just admiring what a nice house it is. Ordinary people can't live in a place like this, right? It's all thanks to my father. After that, we moved to the living room and the three of us chatted. It was a relatively peaceful time, but suddenly, Angela started to look down on me. At the time, I didn't understand why. Vanessa, you really are fortunate, aren't you? Don't you think so too, Kevin? I don't really think about it. But this house is surely thanks to her dad, right? I wondered why she would say such things. I humbly asked for the reason. Did I do something wrong? It's not really that. It's just that our family wasn't wealthy. I had heard from my husband that his father had passed away when they were in middle school. Perhaps because of that, they had faced many hardships. Knowing this, I thought she might be jealous of me. That's probably why she was dressed entirely in brand-name clothes. Well, I'll be going now. I'll come again. See you. See you. In the end, she talked for about 2 hours about how much they had struggled. And how fortunate I was. During that time, my husband hardly joined the conversation and just listened to his sister. Sorry. My sister is always like that.
Yeah.
I kind of figured. I'll tell her to be more careful next time. Despite what he said, Angela came again within a month. And this time, she wasn't alone. Hello, may I come in? She barged in and plopped down on the sofa. Today, I brought our mom too. The door was locked, wasn't it? Oh, Kevin gave me a spare key. What? I wanted to ask my husband about it right away, but he had gone out just then. I could immediately foresee that this was going to be troublesome. And then, the most troublesome person began to speak. It's not such a surprise, just a spare key after all. That's not the point. I wasn't informed at all. Maybe Kevin doesn't trust you? I think so too. I felt like I couldn't win against the two of them. From that day, my life changed drastically. When I came home from work, my sister-in-law and mother-in-law were frequently at the house. Moreover, they were eating food from the fridge and moving things around the rooms without asking. Kevin, this isn't right. You should say something to them. Even if I say something, they won't listen. Maybe it's best to just let them do what they want. I don't want to live like this. You need to speak up properly. I was truly frustrated, both with my indecisive husband and my inability to fix the situation. Okay, I'll talk to them. Just stay there too. If you actually talk to them properly, that would be fine. As usual, when the two came over, my husband did speak to them. However, they didn't listen at all. Vanessa must have put you up to this, right? Kevin, you need to be more assertive. Right. You're the eldest son. You must have something you want to say. Then, my husband looked down and seemed deep in thought. Please don't say unnecessary things. You need to leave. It was when I said this to them. Vanessa, the one who should be quiet is you. Huh? Unbelievably, my husband turned hostile towards me. My mother-in-law and sister-in-law had manipulated him perfectly, exploiting his unassertive and weak-willed nature. From that moment on, I had no allies left. I was wrong. My sister and mother are right. From now on, I will also say what I want to say. Looking at his confident expression, the two of them smirked at me. From then on, it was one-sided. From now on, my mother and sister will come and go as they please. Wait. Don't decide that on your own. It's already decided. I won't let you complain. My husband wouldn't even listen to me. And my mother-in-law and sister-in-law supported him. Vanessa, you should understand by now. Exactly. Kevin is the head of this household. You should just obey as his wife. And, there are spare rooms, aren't there? You can't be serious. Since you're not using them, we'll use them however we want. It was a complete takeover by the three of them. They acted as if the apartment I borrowed from my father was now theirs. At that point, I felt like I had no choice but to be defiant. For the time being, I tried not to care and focused solely on my work. And after 6 months, that effort paid off. You've been working hard. Would you like to take on a higher position? Me? I've been watching your recent work, and you deserve it. Thank you. I'll continue to do my best. It was by an unwelcome motivation, but the best news I had heard recently. However, there was still a problem. You've been coming home late recently. What are you doing? What do you think? It's obviously work. Is that true? Or are you cheating? If you think so, you should just ask. That's when my mother-in-law and sister-in-law chimed in. Getting so defensive makes you look even more suspicious. Angela might be right. But, Mom, with Vanessa's looks, who would be interested in her? Yeah. That's true. They clapped their hands and laughed. They were just having fun at my expense. Before, their visit was 3 times a week at most, but now they were at the house almost every day. One day, my mother-in-law came to me and said something totally off the mark. Do you need something? Do you understand? Understand what? The reason you can live here. A woman like you doesn't fit in this place. It felt like she should be the one thinking that. You can't even manage the house properly. You're just useless here. Do you get it? She really said whatever she wanted. I wanted to retort right away, but saying something then didn't seem like it would calm the situation. I decided to stay silent for the moment. Then, bored or maybe tired, my mother-in-law went back to her room. I sighed and was about to prepare a meal when my sister-in-law arrived. I heard what you were talking about earlier. I truly never feel at ease. You better understand your place. You're pretty much like a maid in this house. I work hard too. I hate to say it, but I earn more than Kevin. Then you should spend that money for the house. Of course, for us too. I can't comprehend this logic. I'm not living extravagantly, and in fact, I'm paying for most of the daily expenses like utilities and groceries. Even my husband has forgotten this, and what's worse, my mother-in-law and sister-in-law don't know this fact. I thought many times about what would happen if I stopped paying. Then maybe you should get a job too? Why should I have to do that? I find it almost enviable that she could say that with a straight face. I thought, where does she go out every day even though she doesn't work? So, where do you go every day? I don't need to tell you that. She looked away from me at that moment. It was clear from her avoidance that she wasn't up to anything good. I see. In that case, I'll just assume you're out playing every day without working. I said this with a straight face. Then, in a rage, Angela threw a mug that was on the table at me. It didn't hit me, but it shattered into pieces. Why did you dodge that? It was my favorite cup. It's your fault, so you clean it up. I didn't respond but silently picked up the broken mug. During this time, my sister-in-law just stood nearby, watching and laughing. I can't count how many times I thought about throwing a shard at her. You're in the way standing there. Huh? I'm just making sure you do it right. After cleaning up in a few minutes, I tried to leave, but she continued to provoke me. Remember this, if you confront me again, it will be much worse. Understood. I'll be careful. In my mind, I didn't agree at all. I muttered complaints under my breath as I watched her, who was satisfied, leave. I thought, she's only on top for now. One day, when I came home from shopping as usual, the house was noisy. Entering, I found it full of boxes. My mother-in-law was bustling about. What are you doing? From today, this is our house. The rest of the stuff is coming today too, so please take care of it. What? What are you doing on your own? Oh. By the way, Angela is coming too, so please welcome her. I immediately asked my husband when I got home from work. Your mother says they are going to live here. Oh, was that today? What are you talking about? Huh? Didn't I mention? They're moving in today. I was dumbfounded by his laughing response. I couldn't find the words to respond. Don't just stand there stunned, start preparing the food. We're celebrating today. Those words made me snap. There's no way this is allowed. In the first place, it is because of me that you can live here. What? What are you talking about? It's just a coincidence, right? A coincidence? Are you serious? I am serious. You're just doing whatever your mother and sister say. What? Say that again. Then, he raised his hand as if he was going to hit me. At that moment, I thought not of fear, but of how my timid husband had reached this point. Are you going to hit me? If you think you can, then try. He slowly lowered his arm. Seemingly intimidated by my words, he quieted down a bit. However, he soon smirked as if remembering something. What are you laughing at? Just remembering why I married you. You were able to marry me thanks to me. What are you talking about? You don't know, but I married you because no one else was interested in you. I had thought we married out of love. Now that he says this, there's not much I can do. Moreover, he began to reveal a shocking truth. And though it annoyed me, I married you because you earned more than me. Oh, but that's what Mom told me. Seeing him laughing out, I felt nothing but anger. I've never thought about that. It is only natural for you to pay living expenses because I kindly married a woman like you. Indeed, since our marriage, I had been the one contributing financially at every turn. I had no idea you were such a terrible person. That's how I feel too. You only bring money, and I never thought it would be this boring. As Kevin and I were arguing, my mother-in-law showed up. If you don't like that much, you should just leave. Why should I have to do that? You're not needed in this house anymore. Angela agreed with her. That's right. Vanessa, you are useless. Nothing will change if you're not here. Then, my mother-in-law threw an envelope on the table. What is this? It's severance money from us. Severance money? There's $10,000 in that envelope, so get a divorce and leave. We're taking the house. The in-laws were smirking at me. At that moment, I made up my mind. The high-rise apartment we lived in was technically under my name. But it was just a loan from my father. And then, I thought of a good way to get revenge on them. I thought, these people are really stupid. Lucky me. I decided to act immediately. Understood. Then I'll leave right away. I thought you'd fight back more. It turns out, she's just that kind of woman. I'm sorry, but I don't want to see your face anymore, so please leave. I was going to do that without you telling me. I quickly packed my things and left the house, skipping along. I couldn't help but burst out laughing, imagining what would happen to them next. I decided to go back to my parents' house to tell my father about this. What's happened for you to come back without any notice? I've been kicked out of the high-rise. Kicked out. Why did that happen? Actually, I explained everything that happened today and the whole situation to my father. His face turned demon-like as he listened. By the time I finished, he was fuming with anger. Then, let's kick them out right away. I stopped him there. Wait, Dad, I have a better idea. A better idea? What is it? I told my father the plan I had thought of when leaving the high-rise. He listened, nodding. That might be a good idea. Right? This way, there's a benefit for you too, and I can get my revenge. Shall I leave it to you then? Yes, leave it to me. The next day, I contacted Kevin. About the high-rise. The high-rise? I'm not giving it back. That's fine. But the rights are still in my name, so I thought I'd transfer them to you. That way, it will truly be yours, right? I see. I don't want to cause you any trouble, so is it okay if I handle the paperwork? Then, I'll leave it to you. Got it. And I'll send the divorce papers by mail too. Please fill in the form. Saying that, I hung up the phone. Right before hanging up, I could sense his happiness. 6 months later, the divorce was finalized and the paperwork for the high-rise was complete. All I had to do was just to wait. Hey. Why is there a bill for $6,000? Explain this. As I had expected, an irate call came from my furious husband. I struggled to hold back my laughter. Did you think you could live there for free? It's a high-rise, after all. It used to be free, didn't it? Sure, when I was there. Don't mess around. He was so loud that I had to pull the phone away from my ear. It was free because I was there, but now that it's yours, you have to pay rent. I'm definitely not paying. That's fine if you don't want to, but remember, the owner of the high-rise is my father. There was silence for a while, then my mother-in-law got on the phone. I heard from Kevin what you did. You've done something unnecessary. Unnecessary? I just did what was obvious. Don't get it wrong. Such a cheeky woman. Say whatever you like. You shouldn't have given me $10,000. I taunted her grandly. I figured we wouldn't be interacting much in the future anyway. Indeed, my words got to her perfectly. We're definitely not paying. That's fine. Just don't complain when my father sues you. Then, my mother-in-law might be shaken, and her momentum rapidly decreased. Aren't you ashamed to rely on your father? Not at all. I think it's more embarrassing for someone who tried to manipulate their son to their own liking. I can't even talk to you anymore. Perhaps realizing she was at a disadvantage, she abruptly hung up the phone. She was just running away. I immediately told my father about this. I see. Then I also have a job to do for my daughter. I'm counting on you. The in-laws acted impulsively, thinking only of themselves, and this was the result. They truly are a pitiful family. They will suffer even more from now on. I just wait and look forward to it. Time passed, and eventually, my ex-husband and his family continued to live in the high-rise without paying rent. My father had no choice but to take action. I just billed them for the back rent. Really? I can't leave them as they are any longer. It will be a good punishment for them. Then, a new fact came to light. There were traces of unauthorized purchases made on a credit card in my name. A lawyer introduced by my father was immediately ready to sue, demanding reimbursement for the expenditures. Why should I have to pay you? Angela was the first to object, mainly because the charges were mostly for luxury bags and clothing. How can you say that after shopping with someone else's money? That's practically theft. Making a fuss over this is so disgraceful. Besides, the purchases were made before the divorce, so it's invalid. Unfortunately, that logic doesn't apply here. You and I are strangers. I don't care about that. She called but hung up unilaterally. Escaping is her usual tactic. But of course, they couldn't just escape from this and had to pay up. However, with the rent for the high-rise and their limited funds, there was no way they could afford it. There was one person, however, who begged for mercy. What now? We can't pay this. I'll have to go into debt, and we can't live like this. You understand, right? It seemed she was trying to use tears to get forgiveness. It's all your own doing. It's shameful to even ask at this point. I know that. That's why I'm swallowing my pride to ask for help. I thought it a waste of my precious time to deal with such people. Impossible. Make sure you pay the full amount. Please, help. Afterwards, they were headed straight for poverty. The three of them had to move back to their old family home, which had deteriorated due to neglect. Eventually, they realized they needed more money to live and they sold it for next to nothing. Vanessa, help me. I would receive calls from my ex-husband occasionally, but I just hung up without saying anything. I ended up living in the high-rise they vacated. Of course, without paying rent. My work is going well, and from now on, I'll live focusing on my own happiness.